Hello and welcome to the first virtual lab that I'm going to be filming for you myself. Here's our experimental setup. I've got two beakers with the same amount of water in there, 175 milliliters more or less, of just water right out of the sinks. I didn't use distilled water or anything. There's a magnetic stir bar in there, and it's just constantly circulating the water. I will be turning those off once we start the experiment, or turning them way down probably, not off. And they're at pretty close to the same temperature. When I last looked, this one was at 31.7 and this one was at 30.9. I'll look again, but they're as pretty close as I'm going to likely get them. Yep, that one is still at 31.7. That one is now at 31.1. Good. So we're more or less within half a degree of each other. That's pretty good. One of them I'm going to be adding a sugar to. I happen to have glucose right here. This is the sugar that you've been learning about that plants make as food for themselves. So I found this in the chemistry closet, so that's the sugar we're going to use, real glucose. And I'm going to be adding the same amount of yeast to each. Yeast, you can buy this in the store. I just bought it right up the street. And yeast is alive. You give it food and it grows. And that's what we're going to be doing. I'll set this up once I've filmed how to set up the experiment. I will go into time-lapse mode because you're supposed to make observations at 10 minutes and at 20 minutes. Rather than have you stare at these two beakers for 20 minutes straight, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. And hopefully we can get it down to a total of, I don't know, under 5 minutes of actually looking at the yeast with not even me talking. So first I'm going to add to the warmer one, figuring that it will cool off a little bit when I'll add it. I'll add some of the glucose. I've got my spatula here. That's what this is called, it's a spatula. And I'll add a couple of spatulas full. Now, these beakers are at pretty close to the same temperature. This was at 31.7 and this was at 31.1 when I looked before. Let's see where we're at now. 31.3 because that's the one I added glucose to, so the colder glucose did cool this one down, 31.3 and 31.6. So we're still pretty close in temperature. Pretty close. So this one's got the glucose, so this one we're going to add yeast to both and we'll see how it's affected. Okay, so I just got a circle of filter paper and I will divide up my yeast. Okay, so after that mess, let's add these. So we got 30.8 and we got, and 32.2. That's not even enough in temperature. Let me turn that one down a little bit. Turn this one up a little bit and we'll wait a minute and wait till the temperatures get back to even again. Okay, we are back to temperatures I can work with again. We're at 31.7 and 32.0. We'll work with that. And if you see my hands go in when we get to the time lapse, it's because I'm adjusting these to keep them more or less in line. So we'll start by adding yeast over here. And we'll add the yeast over here. And since I already handled glucose with this one, I'll kind of get this in with the spatula here. Okay, and the reason I am so worried about the temperature, yeast will only ferment properly if the temperature is between 28 Celsius and 34 Celsius. If it goes below 28 or above 34, it just doesn't work so well. So I'm now going to set this up to do time lapse. I'll set a timer, and we'll see what happens over the course of the next 10 and 20 minute intervals. So this is time 0. It looks like that.
Okay, well, he's had this experiment going for 10 minutes. It doesn't look like anything at all has happened.
No, I don't think it has. This must be the one without the glucose in it. Without any glucose, the yeast has nothing to feed upon, and it simply doesn't live. Sad, really.
Well, now this one's all foamed up on the top. What's that mean?
Well, this is the one with the glucose in it. This is what's called alcoholic fermentation. You see, yeast is a fungi. It's alive and it works, it's a decomposer, so it works opposite of photosynthesis. Instead of taking water and carbon dioxide, putting them together to make glucose, it takes glucose and breaks it down into ethanol and carbon dioxide. And that's what the foam is on the top. It's bubbles of carbon dioxide. This is what makes bread dough rise up to give you fluffy yeast rolls. It's also what gives beer and champagne their bubbles.
Well, let's just wait another 10 minutes and see what happens after that.
Okay, well, it's now been 20 minutes, and the one with no glucose still has done nothing.
You're right. Nothing has happened without the sugar.
Let's go look at the other one. Wow, look, the top is really foaming up. There must have been lots of food for the yeast to grow. It's produced a lot of CO2.
Yes, it has. It's a shame we didn't use it and make a loaf of bread.
I agree. I'm hungry. Maybe we could have made pizza crust or something. Let's go get some pizza.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore.
When you're under the sea and an eel bites your knee, that's amore.